Hey, Bradford back with another WoW TCG Classic deck tech. Today we're going over Balanced Druid, aka Moonkin. No one really calls it that, but you know what? It would be fun if they did, so I'm putting it up here. Here's the hero, Taheo Skyspeaker. It's a pretty cool name, right, to be born with that name. He's got pay 4, flip Taheo, choose one, either deal 3 nature damage to a hero or ally, so deal 3 to a target, or heal 6 from target, usually yourself, you have no allies in the deck. So, pay 4, shoot a guy for 3, or heal yourself for 6. When you pay 4 to shoot something for 3, it is nature damage, which will be buffed by some of our cards, so keep that in mind. Here's the back. It's empty. Nothing back there. He's a balance. He's a Torn Druid. He's got Skinning and Enchanting, but we really won't be using those. Alright, so a Balanced Druid. Why are we doing this? Well, a lot of people want to play a Balanced Druid. It's just a cool idea. I think I originally got this list from Renoir. I'm just kind of changing it up a little bit. The goal is to really be a solo deck, not play any allies. So you can get... This is one where the theme of the deck actually works pretty well with how it plays in the World of Warcraft game, which is pretty neat. I like that idea. This row is pretty much removal. Now here's our kind of our ongoings. I would say these are partially win con. It's just kind of what the deck does. Hard to describe. These are a couple universal removal tools, and just they have a couple of weird jobs. Here's our resource row. It's mostly draw. Let's start at the top. Insect Swarm. This card's kind of goofy. Why do we play this thing? It says attach to target hero or ally, and your hero deals 2 nature damage to it. And ongoing, it has -2 attack. It's got 2 purposes. It will not deal damage to aberration allies. That's a big problem. But at least it gives the character -2 attack, so it sort of makes the creature bad for most of the time. It costs 1, so if all your removal in the deck were to cost 2 and you're against an aggro deck, it can be hard to recover because they can almost always spill out more creatures, so being able to at least turn one's damage off for a long time can really matter, having a turn 1 play. This also says attached to character, not just an ally, so if you're playing against that Death Wish warrior or a rogue that's punching you with weapons, stop that. You bother them with insects, and apparently that gives you -2 attack. That just stays on and makes them deal with it from turn 1 onward. It also has use against Broderick decks that are continuously punching you for 1. You can just tell them, no, deal with some bees. Next up, we got Cyclone. It's an instant ability. Pay 1, attach to target hero or ally, and put 3 wind counters on Cyclone. Ongoing attached character can't attack or protect. At the start of your turn, remove a wind counter from Cyclone. And then when you remove the last one, destroy it. So, it's instant, so generally you want to wait for your opponent to like play all their equipment or completely play on their turn. Or if they have a creature, maybe they'll pump it up with an ability like Aspect of the Wild, or maybe they'll play like Gift of the Earth Mother on it to pump it up. That's great for you. You just toss in this tiny little 1-mana Cyclone, ruin their game plan for several turns. This also works against heroes. If you are a hero deck that relies on attacking, getting Cycloned sucks. It's like a 1-mana, you don't get to play for a couple turns. It's hard for them to deal with, and because it kills itself eventually, a lot of people aren't inclined to actually spin the cards to remove it when really they need to, because whatever turns they're spending, they're sitting there waiting for Cyclone to wear off. The Boomkin Druid is setting up, and it probably has a better late game plan than you. Alright, Stormfire. Pay 3, deal 3 arcane to a target hero or ally, draw a card. This is a very simple card advantage. There's another version of this card called Starshot, which is pay 2, deal 3 to an ally and draw a card. That's better versus allies, but you do need the ability to shoot heroes in this deck. Even if you like the damage is irrelevant at that point in the game, you can just shoot them for 3, draw a card, so you can kind of advance your game plan. Again, this doesn't do anything against the aberration decks, but you've got some other tools against them. This card's fine. You can replace it with something else if you want, but it kind of plays a nice role. You don't really have that much removal, despite going over all this. So there's 4 of these, 4 Cyclones. These are more permanent. There's only 3 of them in the deck. Next up is Lunar Barrage. Pay 5. This is a balance ability. It's basic, so not instant. When you play this ability, you may exhaust any number of ongoing abilities you control. Copy this ability for each ability you exhausted this way. And then what it does is it deals 2 arcane damage to target hero or ally. Since you can choose new targets for every copy, if you had a couple ongoings in play, let's say you just pay 5, cast this, and you tap maybe a Cyclone that's on somebody. Maybe you have a Hurricane in play. Maybe you have like a Moonfire in play. You deal 2, plus an additional 2, that's 4. 2 more, 6. 2 more for 8. That's pretty good. There's only 3 of this card in the deck. You could go up or down if you'd like. It's one of the ways you can actually win. Instead of just getting to the point where you're getting closer to win, you can actually just kill people with this. You can also wipe the board. You can go deal 2 to that creature, 2 to this one, 2 to this one, and then an additional 2 to this one. Let's say it's 2, 2, and 4. That's not bad for 1 card. We'll get back to that one later once we go over the ongoings. Next up, Hibernate. This is a really interesting card. Pay 2, it's an instant. Put target non-token ally into its owner's resource row face down, then exhaust it. So it doesn't work against tokens, but it does work against almost every other creature in the game if you can target it. It's instant as well, so it's a good opportunity for 2-for-1s if you wait for your opponent to buff it up, or you guys know the deal by now. Since it says put the token into the resource row, you're actually it's exhausted when you put it there. You're kind of ramping up your opponent's mana by 1. You're giving them a free mana. You're turning their ally into a mana. That can be bad versus some decks, but it also means it gives you an answer versus other decks. Like if you're playing against a Broderick and you really don't want your opponent to have that extra attack in their graveyard at some point, you can just put it in the resource row. Most decks can't get that card back out of the resource row. It's just stuck there. Another key thing about Hibernate is that it will kill creatures that have Will the Forsaken. Again, Will the Forsaken is this creature cannot leave the battlefield unless it takes fatal damage. So maybe you don't have the burn in hand, you just need to get rid of it. Or you're trying to kill Deathfear, he's got 5 health, you just don't have the resources. Technically, Deathfear's not leaving the battlefield. It's staying in the battlefield, it's just going to the resource row. Really cool way to go around that, and some of your opponents may not be ready for that play. So Hibernate also just kills everything. If you've ever played Magic, this is basically Path to Exile for 2 mana, and it'll kill almost everything in the game. Moving on, we got 4. There's only 3 of those. Sometimes you don't want to ramp. We also have plenty of other removal, so three's plenty. Hurricane. This might be one of the best Druid cards ever printed. Pay 5. It's a balance ability. Ongoing. It enters play with 2 win counters. So similar to Cyclone. Enters play with counters, but you don't tick the counters down until the start of your own turn. It says opposing heroes and allies cannot attack or protect. At the start of your turn, your hero deals 2 nature damage to all opposing heroes and allies, then remove a win counter. If none remain, destroy this ability. Basically, pay 5, this sits in play, your opponent's heroes and allies can no longer attack or protect. This is a huge effect. The fact that it deals 2 nature damage, start of your turn, you remove a counter, so it's going to end up dealing 4 nature damage. So 2 nature damage, remove a counter. Start of your next turn, 2 more nature damage, remove the last counter, and Hurricane pops away. It dies. But it'll end up dealing 4 to their board, and they won't be able to attack for 2 whole turns. Pretty big deal. Especially because we pump up our nature damage. We're about to go into that. This card will really rescue you. In fact, your opponents are going to be ready for Hurricane. If you don't have it sometimes, you just lose. But sometimes when you have it, your opponents are really stuck. They're digging through their deck looking for their ongoing ability removal. Just like Cyclone, they don't always have the time to just sit there and oh, it's okay, it'll kill itself off eventually. Cyclone doesn't kill anything. It just annoys it, right? It just stuns it for a while. Hurricane will deal 4 to their board unbuffed. Heroes as well. So Hurricane's going to hurt. It's a single card. It can prevent 30 damage. It's just a pretty ridiculous ability. Moving on. Let's go on to the ongoings. This is like the setup cards. Ancient Moonkin form. This is instant, and it's a form, so I'm pretty sure, since it's a form, you're not allowed to play... Well, you can play a Restoration or a Feral ability, but if you do, you have to sacrifice the Moonkin form, right? Just like in the game, you have to hop out of forms to do other things sometimes. Or maybe they've changed that since then. I haven't really played a lot of Druids. Let's get to the card. So it's 2 mana, Ancient Moonkin form, instant ability, ongoing. If your hero would deal or heal damage, it deals or heals that much +1. And while you control 5 or more ongoing abilities, you can tap the Moonkin form to draw a card. I also want to touch on the middle bar there on the right where it says Form 1. You can only have 1 Ancient Moonkin form out. You can't have multiple Ancient Moonkin forms or whatever. It's not like, Dragon Ball Z. You can't just power up and scream a lot. So instead, only 1 in play. You can either keep the other one in your hand for backup, or you can just resource it. So, if your hero would deal or heal damage, it deals that much +1 instead. That happens for every trigger. Every time you deal or heal damage. I'm bringing that up because we have cards like Lunar Barrage, which deals 2 and you can copy it. Deal 2 to a creature, deal 2 to a second creature, deal 2 to your hero. Every one of those instances will be pumped up. So it's +1. So this ability would now read, deal 3 to a target, and deal 3 to another target, and then deal 3 to another target. That's why this thing is really a game ender. Eventually you will be able to draw some cards off this, but don't resource things in your hand that you really need just so you can get the last ongoing ability out so you can draw 1 more card, because you may draw something terrible. Yeah, so let this be an empowerment for all your damage abilities, and a late game plan that eventually lets you draw. Next up, there's four Ancient Moonkins in the deck. You could have 4 Earth and Moons, it's very good. I went down to 3, because sometimes I was just drawing it and having to resource it. So I went down to 3 for now. This requires a balance hero, but we are balanced. Also, I really like the art in this card. The color is just awesome. They did really good green-based art in Worldbreaker, so I just wanted to touch on that. It says, ongoing. If a hero or ally you control would deal arcane or nature damage, it deals that much +2 instead. So this is basically double the buff of Ancient Moonkin form, and it stacks because there's no form on the right side. I don't know how this would work in game, but hey, whatever. All your stuff does +2 damage. So if you've got one of these out, Lunar Barrage, instead of dealing 2, would deal 4 per instance. If you have Earth and Moon and Ancient Moonkin out, that's a total of +3 per instance. So this, instead of dealing 2 per trigger, will deal 5 per trigger. Yeah, this card can really kill people out of nowhere. It also works with Hurricane. Ancient Moonkin and Earth and Moon both work with Hurricane. So with Moonkin out, for +1, it would deal 3 damage twice. If you have Earth and Moon out, it would deal 4 damage twice. If you have both out, it's 5 damage twice. That's when Hurricane just starts killing your opponent's hero and preventing him from doing anything. Again, this is kind of a setup deck. It's a little clunky, but once you get there, you can really start having fun. Dreamstate. Cost 5, another balance hero required. Ongoing. When you play a balance ability, draw a card. Yes, this is a late game ability. It really just does absolutely nothing in the early game. If you spend turn 5 doing this, you better not die the next turn. You really have to have a plan against that. And if you spend turn 5 playing this and your opponent just spends their turn killing it, you probably could have gotten better value off that. You might want to play this turn 6 with 1 mana open just so you can cast a Cyclone, which is balanced, or just so you can cast an Insect Swarm, another balanced talent. That way you can at least draw a card off it. I went down to 3 of these. I think there was originally 4. It's an awesome late game plan, but you kind of already have decent late game plans. You've got deal a whole bunch of damage to people, right? You can pump your stuff up real high. You've got already potentially draw cards from this. So this is a late game plan. It's fun, but you got to recognize when this is just not a good card in your hand and resource it. Next up, Gale Winds. I went down to 2 of this. Originally we had 4. It's pay 5 ability. Abilities you control can be exhausted to pay costs as though they were resources. I think this is one of the more interesting cards in the game. I really like the card design behind it. If it costs 4, it would be borderline broken in some cases. But it also does nothing a whole lot of the times. So, yeah, again, it's one of those cards. If you can start tapping your resources to pay for ability costs, you can really get a lot of mana going real fast. This has some, I guess, some problems with Lunar Barrage, which also wants you to exhaust ongoing abilities. So if you're tapping your ongoing abilities to pay for something else, then you don't really want to Lunar Barrage in the same turn, unless you just have to. So keep that in mind. We're down to 2 of this, like I said. You can really tweak the numbers on that if you'd like. Sometimes it's a pay 5, do nothing card. You're killing them with what you have in board. So really keep that in mind before you consider building a game plan around this. This doesn't win you the game. This doesn't win you the game. The cards they draw and the cards they let you cast win you the game. So keep that in mind. Moonfire. This is kind of the best card in the deck if we want to think about it that way. It's just like in game. They really did it justice. Moonfire's pay 2 ability, instant. Attached to target hero or ally, and your hero deals 1 nature damage to it. Ongoing, at the start of your turn, if Moonfire is in play, your hero deals 1 arcane damage to attached character. And it has pay 1, put Moonfire back into its owner's hand. You are the owner of the card, so it's just pay 1, put it back in your hand. This is mainly for killing the opposing hero. You could make a play where you have to kill an ally with 1 health. Like if you just have no removal, and your opponent's got a guy who's just bashing you for 2 every turn, you might just need to Moonfire it. Sometimes it sucks you lose your Moonfire. There's no way to, like if it's 2 health ally, you can't Moonfire it and then at the start of your turn ping it for 1, which would kill it, and then get your Moonfire back somehow. That doesn't work. If the creature dies with Moonfire attached to it, it instantly goes to the graveyard and you don't have time. There's no window for you to react and put it back in your hand. Okay, let's get down to the meat and potatoes of what this thing's going to do. You're going to play this against your opponent, immediately ping them for 1, and at the start of your turn, ping them for 1 again. But let's be real, if you're doing that already, you've probably got some of these pumps in play. So with Ancient Moonkin form, it's going to deal 2 when it comes into play, deal 2 at the start. Yeah, with Earth and Moon, it's deal 3 when it comes into play, deal 3 at the start. Okay, we can do basic math. So that'll put it up to 4 if you have both of them in play, just 1 of each copy. That's great, dealing 4 when it comes into play, deal another 4 at the start of their turn. But what you can really start getting powerful is just Moonfire spam. We've all seen it. I remember way back in Classic WoW, this YouTube video started going around, and it was a Druid using the default interface, and every button was Moonfire, and he was going into PvP and killing people. Well, since you can just pay 1, pick this up, you can cast it again. So think of this as a 3 mana combo, pay 2 to cast it, put 1 mana to bring it back. It's like a 3 mana combo to deal X. So instead of just 1, you just have to calculate whatever you've got in play. So let's say we're doing okay. We've got 1 Earth and Moon, 1 Moonfire. We've got pay 3, deal 3 as our combo. Well, if you get up to 6 mana, that's, pay 6, deal 6. And it goes up even higher with the Moonkin in form, or if you've got Gale Winds in play. Abilities you control can be exhausted to pay costs as though they were resources. Now this is a cool combo. If you have this in play already, and you cast your Moonfire for 2 mana, then you can tap the Moonfire to pay 1 mana to put it back into your hand. Now you've got the combo, pay 2, deal whatever the damage is based on your current board state. So you can literally Moonfire spam someone to death, and you will. Like, turn 6 or 7, it happens pretty often, with or without Gale Winds. Gale Winds is just kind of a fun trick. Alright, that's Moonfire. If you're looking for abilities or digging with your quest or drawing cards, Moonfire is kind of the best way to kill your opponent's hero. Oh, moving back on down to allies. We've got the Natural Order. Oh, I didn't say allies? Come on now, I didn't mean that. This is like utility. So we've got 4 Natural Orders. You can see there's 4 of them. There's a 2-mana ability, destroy target ability or equipment. This is something Druids are good at, so take advantage of this. You've got universal kill any non-allies, and trust me, you've got plenty of ways to kill allies, so other classes would die for this ability. They would beg for it. And you've got some even better ones, which we can go over another time. We have 4 of these, and I put 1 of these main deck, Natural Repossession. Very similar ability. It's pay 3 instead of 2. Choose 1 or both. Destroy target ability or destroy target equipment. So it can basically be the exact same as Natural Order for 1 more. But occasionally you get to pop their abilities. You get to pop 1 of their abilities and 1 of their equipment. That is pretty devastating, getting 2 for 1 on abilities and equipment, which are usually expensive. You could mix up this number. I have 4 and 1 because the cheaper ones are usually better. The mana will matter a lot when your deck is clunky and filled with expensive cards. You could try running 3 too if you expect, but I think a lot of the times the decks that are playing equipment don't really have an ongoing ability in play. I don't know. That may not be true. You decide how you want to run this. I think 3-2 would be acceptable as well, but you might start missing the extra mana. Moving on to Tranquility. This is a restoration ability, which I do believe would pop Ancient Moonkin off. You would have to sacrifice it. So if you do have it in play, make sure you tap it to draw a card before if you can. Anyways, Tranquility is pay X. Your hero heals double X from each friendly hero and ally. We have no allies, so this is just heal myself for double X. Why is this in the deck? Sometimes your removal's clunky and you're playing a bunch of ongoings that don't really affect the board, and you barely got a Hurricane into play, so finally, they stopped attacking you for a second. Maybe your opponent's trying to find a way to kill this. But at this point, maybe you've got Gale Winds in play. You can start tapping the Hurricane and the Moonfire and the Earth and Moon, all this stuff, and you can end up healing for, you can cast this for 7 or 8, and you heal double that. If you're against an aggressive deck and you heal for double 7 or 8, which is 14 or 16, oh, that's terrible for them. They play Ferocity guys with 3 or 4 attack or burn spells for 3 or 6 or something. You healing 16 is kind of game over for them. It means you're going to have 2 or 3 more turns of doing whatever you want, surviving, so that you can move on with your game plan. There's only 2 in the deck. This card also has a lot of synergy with the next card. Utopia. Costs 7 balance ability. It's got a very Wrath of God-like art style if you play a lot of Magic. Occasionally you get these very scenic art styles. You just gotta take that in for a minute. It's pretty neat. Destroy all tokens. Put each other ability, ally, and equipment into its owner's resource row face down and exhaust them. So you can't really gain an advantage of this the turn you put it into play. It's not like you can ramp yourself that turn. You don't get the mana till next turn. Why are we playing this? Because it basically wipes all of our own ongoing abilities off the field as well. Same with our opponents. Sometimes you just need a hard reset. You've got Hurricane, but maybe they popped Hurricane and you're really close to dead. If you get enough mana up to 7, you Utopia the board away. Your opponent gets a bunch of mana, but so do you. So they're going to have 10 resources. You'll probably have 10 to 12. You've completely cleared the board. Maybe that was part of the plan. Maybe you pulled your Moonfire back into your hand before you did this. Or you've got some cards in the graveyard. Utopia is a slow, kill everything board wipe. And it's universal. And we've kind of heard from some sources that if it's universal ability like this that affects both sides of the table, Usually the player casting it has built his or her deck to work with those abilities better. We've built our deck in mind, so we've got some pretty good late game plans. Ongoing ability damage, draw cards, a bunch of stall, lots of extra mana, draw more cards, like multiple effects that can finish off our opponent. This card works well, but also if you Utopia their board away and they're like, oh, that sucks, they don't have anything to kill you with, and you end up with 12 mana, then you can Tranquility for whatever you need, 10, 12, heal for double. So if you Tranquility for 10 off after Utopia the next turn, heal up to 20, and then the turn after you start developing your win con, your opponent's probably out of that game unless they've got an awesome late game. You could definitely cut the Utopias. That's an easy slot. You're gonna find either you hate this card or thank God I drew this. Moving on to the resource row, we got 2 Eye the Storms. You could easily update this to 3. I just drew it a lot and I didn't really like having it, but I don't know. Maybe 3 is just the right number. But for now, we're gonna run 2 Eye the Storm against location where every time you play a card, not a resource, but cast a card, you add a counter. You add those counters whether or not the spell resolves. Once you get up to 4, you can tap the location, remove all 4, and exhaust 4 heroes or allies your opponents control. This is instant speed. You can do this during their turn. You're going to have starts where you just can't deal with their stuff, or if it's Aberration, you couldn't kill anything, so you just needed to tap Eye the Storm or regularly block between like 4 and 15 damage every time you activate it. Great card. 4 Zapped Giants. This is a quest. Pay 2. Complete the quest. Reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Put an ability into your hand. So I guess it's sort of ponder for abilities. Your deck is almost every single card is an ability, so this is going to help you find something. If you already have pump abilities in play and you're not dying, try to find Moonfire. Moonfire is the win condition oftentimes in the deck, and Zapped Giants can help you get there. If you don't find Moonfire, that's okay. We've got a lot of other spells that we can use or draw towards Moonfire. Moving over to Forces of Jaedenar. This quest costs 1 to complete. It says if you played an ability this turn, pay 1 to complete the quest, draw a card. So it's basically just pay 1, draw a card if I played an ability. This is pretty easy to slot in, and this is one of the exact reasons why we play mostly the 2-cost natural order, which isn't quite as good as Natural Repossession. But being just 1 mana cheaper means if our opponent spends turn 3 playing a kite, we can spend turn 3 playing Forces of Jaedenar, kill your kite, and draw a card. So we can sort of try and keep up with what's going on their side of the table. And since our cards are expensive and clunky, we need cheap draw sometimes that we can just get 1 or 2 cards deeper into the deck so we can get the thank God turn 5 Hurricane, that kind of play. This is a quest I don't see very much, but I think it has some use in this deck. Deep Sea Salvage, we have 2 of this quest. During your turn, so make sure you don't forget that. It's pay 4, complete the quest, put a card from your graveyard on top of your deck. This is the Blood Elf quest that does it, but it's only for abilities. But we're not a Blood Elf anyways, so it's not like we're ever going to get card advantage from it. It just puts it on top of your deck, so you have to really plan, and it's expensive. It costs 4. This is useful if you just need to get a Moonfire back. If you just need to get Utopia back, if you just need to get a heal back, if your opponent snapped off your Hurricane and you're like, I have a whole turn where they're not doing much. I'm going to put Hurricane back on my top of the deck, and then I'll cast it again the next turn. It also is one of the only ways we can get back our Netherbreath Spellblade, which we'll get to in a second, and that's another ultimate win con in the deck, and the ability to get anything back. It's slow, but at least it can get it back, and once our deck gets a lot of cards in play, maybe with a Gale Winds, we can get a lot of mana going. Deep Sea Salvage is a universal get back what we need at the cost of tempo. It's just slow. Last card in the deck, Netherbreath Spellblade. It's pay 5. You'll never swing with this weapon. It sucks. Don't do that. So it's a pay 5 weapon. If you would draw a card, skip drawing it instead. It's a May ability, so you may skip doing that. When you first skip drawing a card this way on each of your turns, put an ability from your graveyard into your hand. So once this is in play, the first time you draw per turn, you can instead just pick an ability from your graveyard and draw it instead. This will get you back the Hurricanes to survive. Probably not the Utopia, because it'll Utopia away your Netherbreath Spellblade, and that feels bad. But it gets you some of your other card draw abilities, your pump abilities, your equipment removal, your ally removal, your stall, your heal, anything you need. Once this is in play, you can kind of just put your opponent on a lock and just assemble a giant turn where you're going to Lunar Barrage them for like 5 damage 5 times for 25. That's a pretty easy play to make. And with our Deep Sea Salvage, we can grab Netherbreath Spellblade back just in case our opponent was like, thank God I saved my only equipment removal for that card. Another strength of this deck is you have so many ongoing abilities, your opponents are eventually going to run out. One of these damage pumping abilities is going to stick, a Cyclone or a Hurricane is going to stick and play, a Dreamstate or a Gale Winds is going to stick and play and give you a lot of card draw and a lot of mana to do powerful things. It's going to be hard for your opponent to try and figure out which of these cards am I going to let stay in play and try to outplay the other ones. And Netherbreath Spellblade is a check. It's like, alright, well, you brought in all your ability equipment. I'm sorry, you brought in all your ability destruction. Did you bring in equipment destruction? Because if you didn't, you're in for a bad time. And I'll go over the hero flip. We already went over it. I just wanted to remind you, it's deal 3 nature, pay 4, deal 3 nature damage. Well, if we've got this in play, it's pay 4, instead of deal 3, it'll deal 5. So it's a much more reliable removal spell for creatures or kill condition on our opponent. Here's the sideboard. It's a pretty easy one. I got 1 Torch of Retribution. You can change that number. That's the quest where you pay 4 to complete, and target player shuffles his graveyard into his deck and draw a card. This is good versus graveyard strategies. With only 1, I don't even know if it's worth having. You might just want to take that out and add something else. But hey, it's there if you want to try and hedge. Barkskin. We've got 4 of these, so 1 cost ability. It's instant. Your ability, ally, and equipment cards can't be interrupted. Excuse me. So this is instant, so you can actually 2 for 1 your opponent if you've got the mana open. So you play something and he plays like Fizzle against it, and he uses all his mana up on the Fizzle. In response, it's instant, cast Barkskin. Well, now my cards can't be interrupted. Barkskin resolves. Then your Fizzle tries to resolve. It does resolve, it just doesn't do anything. And then whatever else you cast in the first place is going to end up resolving. You can also just turn 1 play this against a mage when they have no mana up. But beware, they can put a spell suppression on top of it and then just continue to counter you, and that makes you feel bad. Especially if you try and remove the spell suppression and they counter that. So, yeah, be ready for that play. Okay, Hibernate. I mean, this is mostly against mages because they're so prominent and they're really effective against ability decks like this, so we have to have an answer to this. I wouldn't recommend this main board. I think you're going to resource it all the time. I think this is exactly what a sideboard is for, and that's where you want this. Hibernate. Oh, wait. We've already got a bunch of those. Hey, here we go. It's not set up right. So we've got an additional, the 4th Hibernate in the sideboard, just in case your opponent's got a deck full of large dudes, especially like a new Barak who keeps going back to the graveyard. Hibernate's a great answer to a new Barak, because you can just Cyclone him, stun him for a while, and then eventually put him into his opponent's resource row and make him sad. This is just the 4th one. We have two more Natural Repossessions. That's the pay 3, you can destroy 1 ability or 1 equipment or both. So this gives us 5 main deck ways to deal with abilities and equipment and 2 more in the sideboard. So 7 targetable ways to deal with abilities and equipment. A whole bunch of ways to deal with allies. And then 2 more Utopias to deal with whatever thing your opponent was trying to do. So that's 7, 8, 9 with Utopia. 9 ways to interact with our opponent's abilities and equipment. That's pretty good. And this deck it operates on a pretty linear level. It asks your opponents, can you kill me quickly through all my removal? If not, do you have a way to interact with my abilities faster than they're going to kill you? If not, that's not going to work out well for you. Last card, I've got Healing Touch. Again, this will pop your Moonkin off, your Moonkin form off, but it's pay 3, it's an ability. Heal 10 from target hero or ally. Obviously targeting ourselves here. Tranquility's cool. It works better in the late game, but if you Tranquility for 3, you heal 6. If you Healing Touch for 3, you heal 10. That extra 4 health could be a huge difference, and could be just enough health for you to get a Hurricane online and just stop your opponent from having any fun for a little bit. Any of these cards, you can slot out. Like maybe you think, dude, I have plenty of ability equipment destruction, slot this out. I got plenty of ally destruction, slot this out. I don't mind the heals, I'll put 1 in. You could take all 4 of these and slot in more graveyard removal. Whatever, Druids have a lot of great abilities, and that's up to you. This has been the Balanced Druid deck. I hope you have some fun playing it, and I hope to see the look on your opponent's face when they get Moonfired out. If you guys have any comments, things you want to, maybe just additions to the deck, it's pretty fun. It's kind of like Affliction Warlock in a way. You got a bunch of abilities. These solo decks are a lot of fun to play. I recommend it. Let me know if you guys get any good stories playing this deck. Thanks. Bye. One more quick note. Almost every Horde deck's got this guy main deck or side deck. Vuzdin. He's a 3-drop 2/4 Troll Mage ally. Opposing ongoing abilities lose and can't have powers. You better have a plan for this, because it's going to shut off half your deck. And I think even cards like Moonfire, what happens is Moonfire enters play, and then all this text happens. I think that's correct. I'm not sure about the top part, but My interpretation of it is once it enters play, it does all these things, but I think it's once it enters play, it has no text. And so it just completely does nothing. Half your abilities are like that. You better have a plan for this guy. Save some removal for it if it's against a Horde deck, and if their deck has discard, like it's a Warlock or a Mage with interrupts, and you don't have any interrupt protection, like you need to be able to... This guy will single-handedly beat your deck. Absolutely have a plan for him. The Alliance answers aren't so great, but there's a lot more Horde decks in general. Have a plan against this guy.